He lost his wife under mysterious circumstances, and he was never the same again. Years later, he found his new maid wearing her dress. What was grief turned into desire? What was silence turned into danger? If you like love and romance stories, watch until the end. Subscribe to this channel and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. In the silent shadows of Blackwood Manor, a century-old estate nestled among the abandoned apple orchards of Cold Springs, Vermont, lives Vincent Blackwood, 48 years old, the last heir to an Italian lineage that settled in America, carrying more than just dreams of prosperity. Wealthy, reclusive, marked by untold tragedies and a somber beauty that time has failed to erase, he cultivates black orchids in a garden where nothing else has bloomed for decades. The estate, once the beating heart of the region's agricultural prosperity, now breathes only memories and pain. Vincent lives by his own rules, hidden away in a colonial mansion that seems to suspend the echoes of past generations. Every corridor, every room, every stone in the walls carries the weight of ancestral secrets. His touch, he believes, can destroy. His presence consume. For this reason, he has allowed no one to truly approach him for decades. Solitude is his only companion, nourished by guilt and fear of what he might cause to those he dares to love. Once a month for 20 years, a young woman has been hired under unusual and disturbing terms. She must bathe him, nothing more. She must undress before him, guide him to the darkened copper bathtub that rests in the center of the old manor's solarium, wash his body with artisanal soap made from black flowers, an extinct recipe passed down through generations, and depart without ever looking back. No woman returns. No questions are asked. No answers are offered. Only money and silence. The ritual always happens on the same night of the month, when the new moon leaves the manor immersed in an almost supernatural darkness. The women arrive at dusk, brought by a driver who never speaks, and leave before dawn. Some cry during the bath, others tremble. All leave transformed, carrying in their eyes something they cannot name. Vincent observes each of them with a mixture of desire and despair, knowing he is condemned to repeat the same cycle eternally. It is in this setting of mystery and melancholy that Amelia Hart appears, 23 years old, daughter of a washerwoman from Pine Haven, and granddaughter of a woman who mysteriously disappeared in the 60s after being accused of folk healing and witchcraft by the local community. Amelia grew up hearing the stories whispered by her mother about family curses and broken promises, but always believed these were merely metaphors for the violence and injustices of the world. She carries a virginity that is not the fruit of moral or religious conviction, but of a deep fear of abandonment and complete surrender. She knows the touch of men, has allowed caresses and kisses, but has never given herself completely. Something inside her always whispered to wait, to save herself, as if her body knew of a destiny that her mind did not yet understand. Everything in her was postponed, guarded, repressed, creating an internal tension that follows her like a shadow, until the moment she receives a mysterious proposal, delivered by a man in a dark suit in an old envelope, sealed with red wax. The letter, handwritten with ink that seems to have been dipped in blood, says only, "Needs silence, needs courage, needs you," along with the words and address in Cold Springs and the promise of a payment that would change her life forever. She accepts, driven by the desperation that has consumed her family. Her mother, Constance, needs urgent heart surgery, and the doctors have already said there is nothing more to be done. The money promised in the letter is the only hope of paying for a private treatment that could save her. Amelia doesn't hesitate. She packs her few belongings in a worn leather suitcase and boards the bus that will take her to the estate, not knowing that she is walking toward her destiny. The journey to Cold Springs is long and silent. Amelia observes the landscape changing through the window, the mountains becoming higher and more imposing, the vegetation denser and more mysterious. When she finally arrives in town, a silent driver awaits her with a sign bearing her name. The car, a sleek black sedan, travels winding roads until reaching the wrought-iron gates of Blackwood Manor. The manor rises before Amelia like an apparition from a disturbing dream. The colonial mansion, with its stone walls covered by ivy that seems to pulse with a life of its own, dominates the mountainous landscape with a melancholy majesty. The windows, tall and narrow, reflect the golden light of dusk like eyes that observe everything and reveal nothing. The gardens, once magnificent, now display a decadent beauty. where only Vincent's black orchids bloom in perfectly organized beds, contrasting with the abandonment of the rest of the property. The driver stops the car in front of the marble staircase that leads to the main entrance. Without saying a word, he takes Amelia's suitcase and leads her to the massive wooden door, ornamented with carvings that seem to tell ancient stories. Before she can knock, the door opens silently, revealing a middle-aged woman dressed entirely in black with grey hair pulled back in a severe bun. Her eyes, Amelia notices with a shiver, are completely white, glassy, as if they had been touched by an eternal fog. The woman doesn't speak. She merely gestures for Amelia to follow. Her steps echo through the marble corridors, creating a ghostly symphony that seems to awaken the spirits of the house. The walls are decorated with old portraits of men with penetrating gazes, all carrying the same somber beauty, the same melancholy in their eyes. Amelia immediately recognizes the Blackwood lineage. They all share the same aristocratic features, the same aura of power and mystery. The maid, whom Amelia will soon discover is called Beatrice, guides her through sumptuous halls, where crystal chandeliers covered in dust reflect the trembling light of candles lit in silver candelabras. The furniture, all of noble wood and rich fabrics, seems suspended in time, as if the entire house were a museum of preserved memories. The air carries the aroma of jasmine, mixed with something deeper, more disturbing, the smell of secrets kept for generations. Beatrice stops before an oak door and removes a yellowed parchment from her apron pocket. With deliberate gestures, she unrolls it and points to the words written in an elegant ancient calligraphy. Amelia reads in silence, feeling her heart accelerate with each line. The contract is clear and disturbing. She must present herself on the first night of each new moon, completely undress before the master of the house, bathe him with the special soap provided, and leave without asking questions or establishing any type of verbal communication. The payment is specified in an amount that makes Amelia blink several times to be sure she read correctly. There's more money than she would see in an entire lifetime working in the family homes of Pine Haven. Money enough to save her mother and guarantee a future that always seemed impossible. She signs without hesitation, but her hand trembles slightly when the pen touches the paper. Beatrice then leads her to a room on the second floor, furnished with elegant simplicity. An iron-forged bed, an antique wardrobe, a window that offers a view of the somber gardens. There on the bed is laid out a simple but refined white linen dress, and a note that says only, "Wear this." Wait for the bell. Amelia changes slowly, feeling the soft fabric slide over her skin like a promising caress. The bell rings at 10 o'clock, a deep and melancholy sound that seems to echo from the depths of the earth. Beatrice appears at the door like a shadow, gesturing for Amelia to follow. They descend a spiral staircase that leads to the cellars of the mansion, where the air becomes denser and charged with mystery. The corridor is illuminated only by torches that project dancing shadows on the stone walls. Finally, they arrive before a double bronze door, ornamented with symbols that Amelia doesn't recognize, but that make her skin tingle with a strange familiarity. Beatrice pushes the doors, revealing the most impressive bath hall that Amelia has ever seen. The environment is circular, with black marble walls that reflect the golden light of hundreds of candles, arranged in niches around the perimeter. In the center rises a darkened copper bathtub, large enough for 2 people, surrounded by stone steps. Golden steam rises from the water, creating an ethereal and sensual atmosphere. The aroma of black flowers permeates the air, an intoxicating perfume that seems to awaken something primitive and deep in Amelia's soul. And there in the bathtub, with only his shoulders and chest emerging from the dark water, is Vincent Blackwood. For the first time in her life, Amelia understands what the word magnetism means. Vincent is more beautiful than any man should be. With slightly wavy black hair that brushes his shoulders, olive skin that seems golden in the candlelight, and eyes so dark they seem to contain all the nights of the world. But it is the sadness he carries, the deep melancholy engraved in every line of his face, that makes Amelia's heart race. He doesn't look at her initially. Vincent remains motionless in the bathtub, with his eyes closed and his head slightly tilted back, as if he were in deep meditation or trying to escape from some internal pain. The water around him has a strange golden tone, almost luminescent, that seems to pulse gently with his breathing. Amelia feels her heart hammering against her ribs as she observes the perfect profile of this man who seems to have come directly from a Renaissance painting. Beatrice places in her hands a dark, glass bottle containing the special soap. The container is warm, as if it had been heated by some internal fire. And when Amelia opens it, she is invaded by an aroma that awakens memories that are not her own. Black flowers, wet earth, after rain, and something deeper, more ancestral, that makes her soul recognize something that her mind cannot name. It's as if every molecule of that perfume carried stories of women who came before her, secrets transmitted through generations. With a silent gesture, Beatrice indicates that Amelia should undress. There is no embarrassment in the maid's movement, only a ritual solemnity that makes the act sacred rather than vulgar. Amelia removes the white dress slowly, feeling the fabric slide over her skin like a farewell. When she is completely naked, something extraordinary happens. For the first time in her life, she feels no shame. On the contrary, she feels powerful, as if her nudity were armor instead of vulnerability. It is at this moment that Vincent opens his eyes. The meeting of their gazes is like lightning cutting through darkness. Amelia sees in those black eyes a universe of pain, desire, and despair that leaves her breathless. He observes her with an intensity that should frighten her, but instead attracts her like metal to a magnet. There is recognition in that gaze, as if he had been waiting for her all his life, as if he knew exactly who she was before even seeing her. Vincent tries to look away, struggles against the magnetic attraction he feels, but fails. His fists close under the water. The muscles of his arms contract in visible tension. Amelia realizes that he is fighting against some internal force, as if looking at her were at the same time the most natural and the most dangerous thing in the world. She approaches the bathtub with hesitant but determined steps. With each step, she feels the cold marble floor beneath her bare feet, and the contrast with the heat emanating from the water creates an almost mystical sensation. When she finally touches the edge of the bathtub, Vincent closes his eyes again, but his breathing becomes heavier, more irregular. Amelia pours the soap into her hands, and the dark liquid transforms into a creamy foam that seems to have a life of its own. When she extends her hands toward Vincent's shoulders, he whispers almost inaudibly, "You shouldn't be here." But he doesn't move away. He doesn't stop her. The first touch is like a silent explosion. The moment Amelia's hands touch Vincent's skin, both feel an electric current run through their bodies. The water in the bathtub trembles, the candles around them flicker, and the air seems to charge with an ancestral and powerful energy. Vincent opens his eyes abruptly, fixing them on hers with a mixture of terror and ecstasy. She begins to soap his shoulders slowly, feeling under her palms the tense and defined musculature. His skin is hot, almost feverish, and carries small fine scars that form strange patterns, as if they were ritual marks. With each movement of her hands, Vincent shivers, not from cold, but from something much deeper and more disturbing. "What's your name?" Vincent suddenly asks, breaking the ritual silence for the first time in 20 years. His voice is hoarse, carrying a pain that seems to have roots in centuries past. Amelia hesitates, remembering the rules of the contract, but something inside her rebels against the imposed silence. "Amelia," she whispers, and as she pronounces her own name, she feels as if she were conjuring something powerful. The name echoes off the marble walls like an enchantment. Vincent closes his eyes and repeats, "Amelia," as if he were savoring each syllable, as if that name were a prayer he had been waiting decades to pronounce. She continues the bath, her hands descending along his arms, washing the broad chest where his heart beats in an uneven rhythm. The intimacy of the act transcends the physical, transforming into something almost spiritual. There is no lust in the touch, but a connection that seems to exist beyond time and space. When Amelia pours water over Vincent's hair to rinse it, he tilts his head back, and she sees an expression of pure surrender on his face. It's as if that moment of care, of genuine tenderness, was something he had forgotten how to receive. A solitary tear runs down his face, mixing with the bathwater. The ritual ends in absolute silence. Vincent rises slowly from the bathtub, the water running down his body like golden cascades. Amelia offers him a white linen towel, avoiding looking directly at his nudity, but feeling each of his movements as if it were a sacred dance. When he is dressed and ready to depart, Vincent turns to her one last time. His eyes carry a sadness that breaks Amelia's heart, but also a silent promise that she cannot completely decipher. "Will you return?" he asks, although he knows the answer is determined by the contract. "Yes," she responds, but they both know that her affirmation carries much more weight than contractual obligations. It's a promise from the heart, sealed in that moment of connection impossible to ignore. The days following the first bath pass like a blur of restlessness for Amelia. Back in Pine Haven, she tries to resume her normal routine, but it's impossible. The money deposited in her bank account is real, enough to guarantee her mother's treatment, but the memories of that night at the manor pulse in her mind like an open wound. She can still feel the warmth of Vincent's skin under her hands, can still hear the echo of his hoarse voice pronouncing her name like a prayer. Her mother, Constance, notices the change immediately. "You're different, daughter," she says one morning as they drink coffee in the small kitchen of their simple home. "There's something in your eyes, a restlessness that wasn't there before." Amelia lies, inventing a story about a well-paid temporary job in a rich family home. Constance accepts the explanation, too relieved by the prospect of medical treatment to question the details. But the nights are different. Amelia dreams of marble corridors, of the aroma of black flowers, of dark eyes that observe her through the darkness. She often wakes with her heart racing, her body covered in sweat, as if she had run a marathon through unknown dimensions. There are moments when she swears she hears whispers in her house, female voices that speak in languages she doesn't recognize, but that her soul understands. 3 weeks pass until she receives the second summons. The same envelope sealed with red wax, the same old paper, the same elegant calligraphy. This time, however, there is something more. A small black flower preserved between the pages like a macabre bookmark. When Amelia touches it, she feels a strange familiarity, as if she had already held that same flower in dreams she cannot completely remember. The journey back to Cold Springs is even more charged with tension than the first. Amelia observes the landscape through the bus window, but her mind is completely focused on what awaits her at the manor. She wonders if Vincent thought of her during these weeks, if he felt the same restlessness that has been consuming her. The possibility that he might have completely forgotten their encounter leaves her with an empty feeling in her stomach. When she arrives at the manor, everything seems exactly the same, but at the same time completely different. The property still exudes the same aristocratic melancholy, but now Amelia notices details she hadn't noticed before. The black orchids in the garden seem more vibrant, as if they had been nourished by some new energy. The windows of the mansion reflect the evening light differently, more intensely, more alive. Beatrice receives her at the door with the same solemn silence, but Amelia notices something different in the maid's glassy eyes. There is a deeper sadness there, as if she knew something that Amelia has yet to discover. As she guides her through the familiar corridors, Beatrice suddenly stops before a portrait that Amelia hadn't noticed before. The painting shows a young woman with dark hair and bright eyes, dressed in a simple white dress, identical to the one Amelia wore the previous night. The resemblance is disturbing. The woman in the portrait could be her sister, her cousin, perhaps even herself in a previous life. Beatrice points to a small bronze plaque at the base of the picture. Isabella Hart, 1963. The surname makes Amelia's blood freeze in her veins. Hart, like her. Beatrice notices her shock and for the first time speaks. Her voice is hoarse as if it hadn't been used in years. "Your grandmother," she whispers, and the two words carry the weight of a revelation that changes everything. Amelia is paralyzed by the discovery. Her grandmother, Isabella, the woman who mysteriously disappeared in the 60s, had been at the manor. Had been in exactly the same situation that she finds herself in now. The stories of folk healing and witchcraft that her mother told were not just rural legends, they were true and were intimately linked to the Blackwood family. What happened to her? Amelia asks, but Beatrice has already resumed her silence, only shaking her head with an expression of deep grief. This night, when she descends to the bath hall, Amelia carries a completely different emotional load. It is not just curiosity or financial need that moves her. It's a sense of destiny, of fulfilling something that was initiated decades before by her own family. Vincent is already in the bathtub when she arrives, but this time he observes her from the moment she enters. His eyes are even more intense, charged with an urgency that wasn't present in their first encounter. When she begins to undress, he whispers, "You saw the portrait." It's not a question. It's a statement, as if he knew exactly where she had been, what she had discovered. Amelia confirms with a nod, feeling tears threatening to escape. "Isabella was your grandmother," Vincent continues, his voice carrying an ancient pain. "She was the last before you. The last of the Hart lineage to set foot in this house." Amelia's hands tremble as she applies the soap. What happened to her? Vincent closes his eyes as if the question caused physical pain. She tried to break the curse. Tried to save me. He pauses for a long time, his breathing heavy. And she paid the price. The revelation falls on Amelia like a stone in her stomach. Her grandmother didn't disappear by chance. She sacrificed herself trying to save a man who was trapped in an ancestral curse. And now, decades later, her granddaughter was following the same path. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" she asks, her voice breaking slightly. "Because I hoped you would be different," Vincent responds, finally opening his eyes to look at her directly. "Because I hoped you could leave before becoming too involved." But they both know it's too late. The connection between them has already been established, sealed in the first touch, in the first look. Amelia continues the bath with trembling hands, each caress now loaded with the weight of family history and the knowledge that she is walking on dangerous ground. When she finishes, Vincent rises from the bathtub and, for the first time, touches her face with one of his wet hands. The touch is soft, almost reverent, but carries an intensity that makes Amelia feel as if she might burn from within. "You should leave," he whispers against her forehead. "You should take the money and never return. And you should stop pretending this is just a contract," she responds, surprising them both with her boldness. They remain like this for long moments, their breaths mingling, their bodies close but not touching completely. It's a moment suspended in time, charged with dangerous promises and forbidden desires that neither can any longer deny. Between the second and third bath, Amelia can no longer pretend that her life in Pine Haven is enough. Each passing day is a countdown until she can return to the manor, until she can see Vincent again. She tries to occupy herself caring for her mother, accompanying the medical consultations and organizing the treatment, but her mind is constantly wandering through the marble corridors of the Blackwood mansion. Constance, now with the surgery scheduled and the treatment guaranteed, notices her daughter's emotional absence. "Amelia, you're here, but you're not," she comments one afternoon as they rest in the small backyard of the house. "It seems that a part of you stayed somewhere else." Her mother's words are more accurate than she imagines. A part of Amelia really did stay at the manor, intertwined with the secrets of those ancient walls and with the man who lives imprisoned in his own home. The nights become even more intense. Amelia's dreams now include visions of her grandmother Isabella, a young and determined woman who walked the same corridors, who bathed in the same golden waters, who looked into the same dark eyes that now haunt her. In one of the most vivid dreams, she sees Isabella opening secret doors in the mansion, searching for something in the depths of the library, whispering enchantments in a language that seems familiar, but that Amelia cannot completely understand. When the third summons arrives, Amelia doesn't wait even a day. She takes the first bus to Cold Springs, carrying in her heart a determination she hadn't felt before. She needs answers. She needs to understand what her grandmother discovered, what she tried to do and why she failed. More than that, she needs to understand what she herself feels for Vincent. This attraction that transcends the physical and seems to have roots in something much older and deeper. The arrival at the manor is different this time. The black orchids seem more vibrant than ever, almost pulsing with their own life. The air carries a more intense aroma of flowers and mystery, as if the property itself were responding to Amelia's presence in a deeper way. Beatrice receives her at the door, but this time there is an urgency in her movements, as if something important were about to happen. Instead of taking her directly to the bedroom, Beatrice leads her down a corridor that Amelia hadn't seen before. The walls are covered with ancient tapestries that tell stories in images. Noble men making pacts with shadowy figures, women with sad eyes holding black flowers, rituals performed under blood-red moons. The images make Amelia's heart race, as if she were seeing the history of her own family being told in threads of silk. They finally arrive before a double door of dark wood, carved with symbols that make Amelia's skin tingle with recognition. Beatrice pushes the doors, revealing the most impressive library that Amelia has ever seen. The shelves extend from floor to ceiling, filled with ancient books, scrolls, and manuscripts that seem to guard the secrets of the world. The aroma of old paper and ancient ink permeates the air, mixed with the persistent perfume of black flowers. In the center of the library, seated in an aged leather armchair, is Vincent. He is not in the bathtub this time, but dressed in a white shirt open at the chest and dark pants. His hair is slightly disheveled, as if he had repeatedly run his hands through it, and his eyes carry an intensity that makes Amelia stop at the entrance. "You came earlier," he says, closing a thick book he had in his lap. "You couldn't wait for the new moon." "I couldn't," Amelia admits, walking toward him with determined steps. "I need answers, Vincent. I need to understand what happened to my grandmother, what's happening to me, what is this curse that keeps you here?" Vincent rises slowly, observing her with a mixture of admiration and concern. "The answers you seek are dangerous, Amelia. Knowledge has a price and we are not always prepared to pay it." "My grandmother paid that price," she responds, moving even closer. "And I have the right to know why." He sighs deeply, as if carrying the weight of decades of guilt and secrecy. "Then come," he finally says, extending his hand to her. "I'll show you what Isabella discovered, what led her to make the decision she made." Vincent guides her through the library, to a section hidden behind a movable bookshelf. There, on a table of black marble, are arranged ancient scrolls, books with worn leather covers, and a diary that Amelia immediately recognizes as being in her grandmother's handwriting. Her heart races when she sees the words written by Isabella's hand, the same hands that she inherited, the same long and elegant fingers. "The pact was made in 1847. Vincent begins, his voice low and charged with reverence for the weight of history. "My great-great-grandfather, Lawrence Blackwood, was going bankrupt. The estate, the family, everything was being lost. In desperation, he sought help in practices that he should have left in Italy." He opens one of the scrolls, revealing intricate symbols and words in Latin that dance before Amelia's eyes. He made a pact with an ancient entity, something that exists in the shadows between worlds, in exchange for wealth, power, and longevity for the Blackwood lineage. He offered something precious, the right to hunt and feed on the vital energy of women of the Hart lineage. Amelia feels her blood freeze in her veins. "Feed?" "The entity feeds on pure feminine energy," Vincent explains, gently touching her face, "especially from virgin women from the lineage of healers. Each bath, each touch, transfers a bit of that energy to the entity through me. That's why the women never return. They are left exhausted, empty, shadows of what they were before." The revelation is like a punch to the stomach. Amelia steps back a few paces, trying to process the information. "And my grandmother discovered this?" "Isabella went further than any other," Vincent continues, opening her diary. "She researched, studied, found references to the pact in ancient books. She discovered that there was a way to break it, but that it required a supreme sacrifice." He shows Amelia a specific page of the diary, where Isabella had written in red ink, "True love can break any curse, but only if offered freely, without coercion, without fear. The virgin must give herself completely, not only of body but of soul, knowing that it could mean her death." "She tried," Vincent whispers, closing the diary carefully. "On the last night she spent here, Isabella gave herself completely to me, knowing the risks. For a moment the pact faltered. I felt the entity writhe, confused. But it wasn't enough. She disappeared during the night, taken by the entity as punishment for trying to break the agreement." Amelia feels tears running down her face, but they are not tears of fear. They are tears of understanding, of a deep connection with the grandmother she never knew but whose blood runs in her veins. "And now I'm here," she whispers. "And now you're here," Vincent confirms, approaching her again. "More like her than I thought possible. More determined, more courageous, more dangerous to me and to the entity that keeps me imprisoned." They remain in silence for long moments, the weight of history and destiny hovering between them like a loaded cloud. Finally, Amelia breaks the silence. "And if I want to try what she tried?" Vincent's eyes fill with terror and desire in equal measure. "Then you will be risking not only your life but your soul. And I don't know if I could live with myself if I lost you as I lost her." The revelation about the Blackwood curse and Isabella's fate changes everything between Amelia and Vincent. There are no more pretenses, no more disguises about the nature of their encounter. They are connected by invisible threads of destiny, blood, and an attraction that transcends the purely physical. This night, when Amelia descends to the bath hall, each step resonates with the weight of a decision that could cost her life, but one she can no longer avoid making. Vincent already awaits her in the bathtub, but this time there is something different in his posture. The melancholy resignation he always carried has been replaced by a palpable tension, as if he were fighting an internal war. His eyes, when they meet hers, shine with an intensity that makes the air in the room seem charged with electricity. He knows that Amelia hasn't come merely to fulfill the ritual contract. She has come seeking answers, confronting destiny, challenging forces that wiser men would fear. "You shouldn't be here," he says when she begins to undress, but his voice carries more desire than warning. "And where should I be?" she responds, allowing the white dress to fall to the floor like petals of a blossoming flower. "Pretending I can live a normal life after knowing the truth? Pretending I don't feel this connection that pulls me to you like the tide is pulled to the moon?" For the first time, Vincent doesn't avert his gaze when she stands completely naked before him. His eyes travel each curve of her body with a reverence that borders on the sacred, as if she were an ancient goddess, manifesting in her purest form. Amelia feels the power of her femininity as never before, finally understanding why her energy is so desired by the dark entity that haunts the Blackwood family. When she enters the bathtub, the golden water seems to react to her presence, becoming more luminous, warmer. Vincent recedes slightly, but cannot completely withdraw. The space between them vibrates with a sexual tension that threatens to consume them both. Amelia sits on the opposite edge of the bathtub, allowing her feet to touch his legs under the water. "Tell me about the other women," she asks, applying the black flower soap to her own hands. "The ones who came before my grandmother." Vincent closes his eyes as if the memories caused physical pain. "They were all beautiful, all innocent, all had eyes that shone with hope when they first arrived here." His voice becomes a hoarse whisper. "And all left with that light extinguished, as if an essential part of their souls had been sucked away forever." "But you didn't want that to happen," Amelia states, slowly moving toward him through the water. "You suffered with each ritual, didn't you?" "Each touch was torture," he confirms, allowing her to begin soaping his shoulders. "Because I knew I was stealing something precious from them, even without wanting to. The entity feeds through me, uses my body as a channel. The more I desired the women, the more energy it could extract." Amelia's hands pause in their movement. "And with me? Do you desire me?" Vincent opens his eyes and stares at her with an intensity that leaves her breathless. "From the moment you entered that hall for the first time, I haven't been able to think of anything else. You've invaded my dreams, my waking thoughts. Every breath I take carries your scent." He takes one of her hands, intertwining their wet fingers. "I desire you more than I've desired anything in my entire cursed existence." The confession hits Amelia like a wave of heat that travels through her entire body. She moves even closer, until their faces are only inches apart. "Then why do you fight against it?" "Because if I surrender completely to what I feel for you," Vincent whispers against her lips, "the entity will have enough power to consume you completely. And I would rather live this eternity of torment than be responsible for your destruction." But Amelia doesn't retreat. Instead, she closes the small distance between them and kisses him. It's a gentle kiss at first, almost hesitant, but it deepens when Vincent can no longer resist. His lips move against hers with a hunger that has been repressed for too long, his hands finding her face, her hair, her back. The water around them begins to literally boil, steam rising in golden spirals that create hypnotic patterns in the air. When they finally separate, both are breathless. Amelia can feel something changing in the air, a shadowy presence that stirs in the depths of the mansion, awakened by the intensity of their connection. But instead of fear, she feels a strange power running through her veins, as if the healer's blood inherited from her grandmother was finally awakening. "The entity is furious," Vincent murmurs, his eyes scanning the shadows around the hall. "It can sense that you're different, that you represent a real threat to the pact." "Then let it sense that," Amelia responds with a courage that surprises her. Let it know that Isabella Hart had a granddaughter, and that I won't simply accept the destiny that was traced for my family. She stands in the bathtub, the water running down her body like cascades of liquid gold. Vincent observes her with a mixture of admiration and terror, seeing in her not just the woman he has fallen in love with, but also the incarnation of an ancestral power that may be the key to his liberation or to his final destruction. "Amelia," he whispers, also standing and embracing her in his arms. "If you really want to try to break the curse, you need to understand that there are no guarantees. You could die, could disappear like your grandmother, or worse, you could become part of the curse itself, trapped here with me for all eternity." She looks him in the eyes, seeing reflected there all the pain of decades of isolation and guilt. "And if I say that I prefer to take that risk than to live knowing I abandoned you to your fate, then I would say that you are braver and more foolish than Isabella ever was," he responds, sealing his words with another kiss, this one even more desperate than the first. When they exit the bathtub, their bodies touch more intimately than in any previous ritual. There is not only desire between them now, there is love, there is complicity, there is a union of purposes that transcends the physical. Amelia knows that she has crossed a line from which there is no return. She is no longer just a woman fulfilling a strange contract. She is a warrior preparing for a battle that may cost her soul, but that may also free the man she loves from a prison built with blood and black magic. This night, when Vincent accompanies her to her room, breaking yet another of the ancestral rules of the ritual, they know that everything has changed. The next encounter will not be just another bath. It will be the beginning of a war against forces that have existed for centuries, and the outcome will determine if love can truly triumph over the oldest curse. The days following the kiss in the bathtub are marked by transformations that Amelia could never have predicted. Back in Pine Haven, she can no longer pretend normalcy. Her body seems to vibrate with a new ancestral energy, as if the healer's blood that ran in her veins had been awakened by the intimate contact with Vincent and with the dark magic that surrounds him. She dreams every night of ancient rituals, of women of her lineage performing ceremonies under blood-red moons, whispering enchantments in languages that her conscious mind doesn't recognize, but that her soul perfectly understands. Her mother, Constance, notices evident physical changes. Amelia's eyes, previously a soft brown, now shine with golden reflections that dance according to the light. Her skin seems more luminous, as if radiating a soft light from within, and there are moments when Constance swears she sees a golden aura around her daughter, especially when she is concentrated or emotionally intense. "You're different." "My daughter," Constance comments one morning, holding Amelia's face between her hands. "There's something in you that wasn't there before, something that reminds me of my mother, Isabella, when she was young and still practiced the old traditions." The mention of her grandmother makes Amelia's heart race. "What do you mean by old traditions?" Constance sighs deeply, as if she had been carrying a weight for decades. "Your grandmother was a true healer, Amelia, not just someone who knew medicinal herbs. She had a gift, a connection with forces that most people can't see or understand. After she disappeared, I swore never to speak of it, fearing that you would inherit the same tragic destiny." "But I did inherit it, didn't I?" Amelia asks, feeling the truth resonate in her bones. "I think so," Constance admits, tears beginning to form in her eyes, "and I fear what that means for you." 3 days before the 4th new moon, Amelia receives not only the envelope with the usual summons, but also a larger package wrapped in black silk. Inside, she finds an ancient scarlet velvet dress, embroidered with golden threads that form symbols that make her skin tingle with recognition. Along with the dress, there is a letter written in Vincent's handwriting, the first direct communication he sends to her. "My dear Amelia," the letter begins, "things have changed since our last encounter. The entity is restless, furious with our growing connection. It knows that you represent a real threat to the pact that keeps me imprisoned. If you come this time, it will no longer be a simple bathing ritual. It will be a direct confrontation with forces that have existed for centuries. The dress belonged to your grandmother Isabella on the last night she spent here. If you choose to wear it, you will be accepting the same destiny that she sought. Don't come if you're not absolutely certain, but if you do come, know that my love for you is stronger than any curse." Amelia reads the letter several times, her hands trembling slightly. The dress, when she holds it against her body, seems to pulse with its own energy. It's as if the fibers of the fabric had absorbed Isabella's essence and now sought to reconnect with the energy of her descendant. When she tries it on, the dress adjusts to her body like a second skin, accentuating every curve, making her appear taller, more powerful, more dangerous. The journey to Cold Springs this time is different from all the previous ones. The bus seems to move through a supernatural fog, and Amelia swears she sees shadowy figures observing from the forest as they pass through the mountains. The very air seems charged with electricity, as if an epic storm were approaching. Other passengers comment on the strange sensation, on disturbing dreams they had the previous night, on a restlessness they can't explain. When Amelia arrives at the manor, the property seems completely transformed. The black orchids in the gardens are larger and more vibrant than ever, some of them glowing slightly in the darkness with an unnatural phosphorescence. The mansion itself seems to breathe, its ancient stones pulsing gently like a gigantic heart. The windows reflect not the evening light, but something deeper, darker, as if showing glimpses of other dimensions. Beatrice receives her at the door, but this time she is not alone. At her side, an ethereal figure gradually materializes, a young woman with dark hair and bright eyes wearing a white dress that seems to be made of moonlight. Amelia immediately recognizes the familiar features, the same bone structure, the same expressive eyes that she saw in the mirror every morning. "Isabella," Amelia whispers, and her grandmother's spirit smiles sadly, confirming her identity with a nod. Isabella approaches slowly, her translucent form seeming to gain substance as she nears Amelia. When they finally touch, a touch that is more energy than physical, Amelia is flooded with visions and memories that are not her own. She sees through Isabella's eyes the same corridors she traversed, feels the same desperate love for Vincent, understands the sacrifice that her grandmother tried to make and why she failed. "You are stronger than I was," Isabella communicates directly to Amelia's mind, her voice echoing like a whisper of wind through the trees. "Your power is more developed, your connection to the ancestral magic purer. But the danger is also greater. The entity learned from my attempt to break the pact. It will be prepared for you. How can I defeat it?" Amelia asks, feeling the shadowy presence stirring in the depths of the mansion, reacting to Isabella's spirit. "With true love, but not only that," Isabella responds, her form beginning to fade as the entity fights to expel her. "You need to completely accept who you are, accept your power, accept the risk. And Vincent needs to be willing to die as a man to be reborn free." Before Amelia can ask more questions, Isabella disappears, leaving only the echo of her final words. Love is the most powerful magic, but only when offered without reservations, without fear of death, without fear of transformation. Beatrice, who observed the entire encounter in silence, finally speaks again, her voice carrying an urgency that wasn't there before. "He's waiting for you in the orchid garden, not in the bath hall. This night will be different from all the others." Amelia walks down the familiar corridor, but everything seems amplified, more intense. The paintings on the walls seem to move, the eyes of the Blackwood ancestors following her as she passes. Isabella's scarlet dress whispers against her legs as if it had a life of its own, and she can feel the power of generations of healers running through her veins like liquid fire. When she steps into the garden, she finds Vincent waiting among the black orchids that glow under the light of the full moon. He is not formally dressed as always, but with only an open white shirt and dark pants. His hair is loose, moving gently with a breeze that seems to carry whispers of ancient languages. When he sees her in Isabella's dress, his eyes fill with a mixture of desire, love, and terror. "You came," he whispers, extending his hand to her. "I came to free you," she responds, taking his hand and feeling an electric current run through both of them, "and to claim what is mine by right, you free of any curse." Above them, stormy clouds form from nowhere, and the air charges with an energy that makes the hair on both of them stand on end. The final battle is about to begin. The garden of black orchids transforms into a supernatural battlefield the moment Amelia and Vincent touch. The flowers, which before glowed softly, now pulse with intense light, as if they were beacons guiding ancestral energies across dimensions. The air around them vibrates with a palpable tension, and shadows that shouldn't exist begin to move independently of any light source, sliding across the ground like serpents of darkness seeking their prey. Vincent immediately feels the change. His muscles contract involuntarily, as if something inside him were being pulled by invisible strings. "She's coming," he whispers, his eyes darkening until they become completely black. "The entity. She knows you won't give up like the others. She's coming with all her strength." Amelia squeezes his hand, feeling the power running through her veins like incandescent lava. Isabella's scarlet dress seems to react to the energy, the golden embroidery beginning to glow with its own light. "Let her come," she responds, her voice carrying an authority she doesn't recognize as her own. "I am no longer the frightened girl who arrived here months ago. I am Isabella Hart. I am Constance Hart. I am all the healers who came before me. And I am Amelia Hart, and I will not allow this curse to continue." The wind suddenly increases, bringing with it whispers in languages that seem older than humanity itself. The black orchids begin to move as if they were animals, their petals opening and closing in a hypnotic rhythm that makes the heart accelerate. And then, from the deepest shadows of the garden, it emerges. The entity doesn't have a defined form, but is a presence that sucks the light from the environment, creating a void of darkness that seems to consume hope itself. When it speaks, its voice resonates from multiple directions at once, as if coming from the depths of the earth and the heights of the sky simultaneously. "Heart!" The hissing voice echoes through the garden, carrying a millennial anger. Another heart, thinking she can break what was sealed with blood and despair. "Your grandmother already tried, girl. Where is she now? Where are all the others who dared to defy me?" Amelia feels fear trying to infiltrate her heart, but repels it with the strength of her lineage. "Isabella didn't fail," she declares, surprising the entity itself. "She prepared the way for me." Each of the women who came before prepared the way for this moment. The darkness around them pulses with fury, foolish illusions of an insignificant mortal. "You don't comprehend the power you're dealing with. I have existed since before your ancestors dreamed of setting foot on this land. I am eternal hunger, infinite desire, the force that moves men to make pacts that destroy their souls." Vincent struggles against the entity's influence, his muscles trembling with the effort. "Amelia," he manages to whisper through clenched teeth, "she's trying to use my body as a stronger channel. The more I desire you, the more power she has over us both." But Amelia doesn't retreat. Instead, she moves even closer to Vincent, placing her hands on his face, forcing him to look into her eyes. "Then stop fighting against what you feel," she says, her voice firm despite the supernatural storm around them. "Stop being afraid of your love for me." That's exactly what she wants, for you to repress yourself, to live in guilt and fear. "But if I surrender completely," Vincent begins. But Amelia interrupts him with a kiss that is at once gentle and desperate. "If you surrender completely, then we'll be truly united," she whispers against his lips, "and her power will diminish, because it will no longer be fed by internal conflict, by the division of your soul. It will be confronted by the complete union of two people who love each other without reservations." The entity screams in rage, realizing Amelia's strategy. The shadows intensify, trying to physically separate them, but discover they cannot touch the circle of golden light that forms around the couple. The black orchids begin to change color, their petals assuming shades of gold and red, as if they were absorbing and transforming the dark energy into something purer. "Isabella tried the same," the entity hisses, its form becoming more solid, more threatening. "You mortals and your illusions about the power of love. Love is just another form of hunger, another type of desire that I can manipulate and corrupt." But even as it speaks, something is changing. Vincent stops fighting against his feelings, allowing all the love he feels for Amelia to flow through him without resistance. And when this happens, the parasitic connection that the entity maintained with him begins to weaken. Instead of sucking energy through repressed desire and guilt, it encounters something it cannot easily corrupt, love offered freely. Without fear of the consequences, Amelia feels the power of her lineage growing within her. The memories of all the heart healers flow through her consciousness. Protection rituals, banishment enchantments, ancient secrets about how to deal with dark entities. She finally understands what Isabella discovered, but couldn't complete. "You feed on fragmented energy," Amelia declares, her voice echoing with ancestral authority. On repressed desire, on denied love, on guilt and shame. But when two souls unite completely, without fear, without reservations, you can no longer suck that energy. It becomes something you cannot touch. The entity then attacks with all its fury, projecting waves of pure darkness that would make any ordinary mortal instantly disintegrate. But Amelia and Vincent, united not only physically but spiritually, remain in the center of their bubble of golden light. Isabella's dress flames around Amelia as if it were made of liquid fire, and for the first time in centuries, the entity feels something it hadn't experienced in a long time. Fear. Impossible, it growls, its form beginning to falter. The pact is sealed with Blackwood blood. It cannot be broken by simple mortals. Yes, it can. Vincent speaks for the first time with a clear voice, free of the shadowy influence. Because I choose to break the pact. I choose to die as a man if necessary, rather than live as a prisoner of a curse that has destroyed so many innocent lives. It is at this moment that Amelia fully understands what she needs to do. The final sacrifice is not just hers nor just his. It's both of them together, offering their lives and souls to each other in complete surrender, creating a force that transcends any ancient pact. She kisses Vincent again, but this time it's different. It's a kiss that seals not only their love, but their willingness to face any destiny together. And when their energies completely merge, something extraordinary happens. The manor itself begins to tremble, not with destruction, but with liberation, as if invisible chains that had bound it for centuries were finally being broken. The entity emits a cry that seems to tear the very fabric of reality, but it is already being pulled back to the shadowy dimensions from whence it came. Its power over the Blackwood lineage, based on centuries of repressed desire and nurtured guilt, cannot prevail against true love offered freely, without fear of the consequences. This is not over, it screams as its form dissolves. There will always be darkness, there will always be corrupt desire. But not here, Amelia responds, her voice carrying the power of all her ancestors. Not anymore in this house, not anymore in this family. The cycle is broken. When the entity finally disappears into the shadowy dimensions from whence it came, a deep and sacred silence takes over the garden. The black orchids, now transformed into golden flowers that glow softly in the darkness, stop pulsing with supernatural energy and assume a serene luminosity, almost celestial. The air, which moments before was charged with electricity and fear, now breathes lightly, as if the very atmosphere had been purified of centuries of accumulated darkness. Amelia and Vincent remain embraced in the center of that transformed garden, but both feel that something fundamental has changed, not only around them but within themselves. Vincent, who for decades carried the weight of a curse that kept him unnaturally young, feels for the first time flowing normally through his body. It's not a sudden and dramatic aging, but a sensation of finally being synchronized with the natural rhythm of life, free of the supernatural bonds that kept him trapped in an unnatural state of existence. His hands, when they touch Amelia's face, no longer carry the supernatural cold that always haunted him. They are the hands of a man, warm, alive, capable of offering warmth instead of sucking vital energy. He looks at her with eyes that, for the first time in centuries, reflect genuine hope instead of resigned despair. "It's over," he whispers, and the words carry the weight of decades of imprisonment, finally being broken. It's really over. Amelia feels her own transformations occurring in her body. The ancestral power that awakened during the confrontation doesn't disappear, but settles in her bones like a river finding its natural bed. She now understands that she wasn't just an ordinary woman who was called to break a curse. She was the culmination of generations of healers, the heir to a power that was being refined and purified through each woman of the Hart lineage who came before her. Isabella's scarlet dress, which flamed like fire during the battle, now glows softly around her body, as if it were made of liquid light. When she looks at her own hands, she sees that the golden embroidery of the dress has somehow been transferred to her skin, creating delicate and beautiful marks that pulse gently with her heartbeat. They aren't scars, but symbols of power, signs that she has transcended her common humanity without losing her fundamental essence. "I'm different," she whispers, more to herself than to Vincent. I can feel everything. The life in the plants, the energy of the earth, the echoes of all the women who came before me. It's as if I had access to a wisdom that was always there, but was dormant. Vincent kisses her softly, and the touch of his lips confirms that they are both transformed, but still fundamentally themselves. "You were always special," he murmurs against her mouth. "From the first night you arrived here, I knew you were different from all the others. You had a light that darkness couldn't touch." They walk slowly back to the mansion, and Amelia realizes that the property itself is transforming. The stone walls, which before exuded melancholy and dark secrets, now radiate a welcoming serenity. The windows, which reflected shadows and mysteries, now show only the golden light of candles lit in the interior candelabras. The estate is being reborn, released from the supernatural influence that kept it trapped in a state of perpetual decay. Beatrice awaits them at the main door, but her appearance has also changed dramatically. Her eyes, previously glassy and white, now shine with a deep and intelligent blue color. She smiles, genuinely smiles, for the first time since Amelia met her. When she speaks, her voice is no longer the hoarseness of someone who hasn't used their vocal cords for years, but a melodious and warm tone. "It is done," she says simply, but her words carry a deep gratitude. "It is finally done. I was a prisoner as much as Master Vincent, condemned to serve in silence until the curse was broken. Now I can live again." She steps aside to allow them to enter, but before adds, "Your grandmother Isabella was right. True love can break any curse, but only when offered without reservations, without fear of death or transformation. You two achieved what she tried, but could not complete alone." That night, Amelia and Vincent do not follow the ancient ritual of the bath. Instead, they simply stay together in the library, leafing through books and scrolls that before contained dark secrets, but that now reveal knowledge about healing, about positive magic, about how to use ancestral gifts to help instead of destroy. The words in the ancient texts have changed, as if reality itself had been rewritten by the breaking of the curse. "What happens now?" Amelia asks, nestled in Vincent's arms in a large leather armchair before the crackling fireplace. "Do we return to our lives as if nothing happened?" Vincent laughs softly, a sound that she realizes she has never heard before. Genuine laughter, free of bitterness or melancholy. "Nothing will be as before," he responds, kissing the top of her head. "Neither you nor I are the same people we were, and I don't want to return to a life without you. And my mother, my life in Pine Haven?" "Constance will be welcome here," Vincent assures. "This estate needs life again, families, children running through the gardens. And you have a gift that can help many people. Your healer abilities can be used to heal instead of feeding curses." Amelia turns in his arms, studying his face in the light of the flames. "Are you sure that's what you want? A normal mortal life, without the supernatural powers that the curse gave you?" "I'm absolutely certain," he responds without hesitation. "I prefer 50 years of true life at your side than an eternity of empty existence without you. I prefer to grow old with you, see white hairs appear in your hair, feel wrinkles forming around your eyes when you smile, than to live forever young but alone." They make love for the first time that night, not in a ritual charged with dark magic, but as two human beings who found each other through extraordinary circumstances, and chose to stay together through even more extraordinary circumstances. It's a union that transcends the physical, sealed not only by passion, but by the shared experience of facing together forces that could have destroyed them both. When dawn arrives, bringing the first rays of sunlight through the library windows, Amelia awakens in Vincent's arms with a sense of completeness that she never imagined possible. There are no more secrets between them, no more curses hovering over their heads, no more dark rituals to fulfill. There is only love, pure and simple, and the promise of a future that they can build together, free from the shadows of the past, but honoring the journey that brought them to each other. The golden orchids in the garden sway gently in the morning breeze, as if blessing the new day and the new life that is beginning for those who had enough courage to fight against the darkness and win through the transformative power of true love. Isabella, though no longer visible, seems to whisper her approval through the wind that gently moves the curtains. The lineage of the heart healers did not end with her failed attempt to break the curse. It flourished, found its true strength, and now continues through Amelia. But without the weight of ancestral curses, free to use its gifts to heal and protect, instead of being consumed by dark forces. 2 years have passed since the night when the Blackwood curse was finally broken, and Blackwood Manor has transformed into something that none of its former inhabitants could have imagined. Where melancholy and isolation once reigned, life now pulses in every corner of the property. The gardens, once dominated only by the mysterious black orchids, now flourish with an impressive variety of medicinal plants that Amelia cultivates with the care and wisdom inherited from her lineage of healers. The estate has become a refuge for people seeking healing that is not only physical but emotional and spiritual as well. Amelia discovered that her ancestral gifts, freed from the dark chains of the curse, can be used to alleviate real suffering, to heal wounds that traditional medicine often cannot reach. She receives visitors from all over the Cold Springs region and even from more distant towns. People who have heard of the young healer who possesses hands capable of calming ancient pains and a heart capable of understanding afflictions that others cannot see. Constance moved to the manor 6 months after the curse was broken. After her surgery was a complete success, initially hesitant to leave Pine Haven, she instantly fell in love with the property and the peace that emanated from every stone of the renovated mansion. Now at 58, she has found not just a new home but a renewed purpose. She works alongside her daughter, preparing teas and ointments, sharing her knowledge of medicinal plants that she learned from her own mother, Isabella. "It's strange," Constance comments on a golden autumn morning, as they work together in the herb garden. "I feel as if my mother were here with us, as if she had finally found peace after all these years." Amelia smiles, her hands buried in the fertile soil where a new chamomile seedling grows. "She is at peace," she responds with certainty. "I can feel her sometimes, especially when I'm healing someone. It's as if she were whispering guidance, sharing secrets that only a true healer can understand." Vincent, at 50, has never been happier or felt more alive. The first signs of age that began to appear after the curse was broken, a few silver strands in his black hair, subtle lines around his eyes when he smiles, are received by him as precious blessings. Each mark of time is proof that he is finally living a normal human life, aging naturally alongside the woman he loves. He has transformed part of the estate into a sustainable rural tourism business, receiving visitors who seek not only Amelia's treatments, but also the opportunity to experience the tranquility and beauty of the renovated property. The former gloomy rooms of the mansion have been transformed into welcoming suites, decorated with restored furniture that tells the story of the Blackwood family. But now free from the heavy energies that once haunted them, Beatrice, whose true identity was revealed as Mary Bennet, a young woman who was hired as a maid at the estate in the 1960s and ended up trapped by the same curse that kept Vincent captive, now at 75 dedicates herself to telling the property's stories to visitors. Her narratives, previously impossible to share due to the silence forced by the dark entity, now flow like a river released from its dams, carrying wisdom and warnings about the dangers of making pacts with forces we don't fully understand. On an especially golden late October afternoon, Amelia walks through the gardens with a protective hand over her slightly rounded belly. At 25, she carries within her not just a new life, but the promise of continuity for the Hart lineage, now free from the curses that haunted previous generations. The baby growing in her womb will be the first Blackwood Hart to be born under the blessing of true love instead of the shadow of dark pacts. Vincent finds her seated on the marble bench he had installed exactly where they faced the entity 2 years before. Where once only black orchids grew, now flourishes a diverse garden of healing plants, each chosen not only for its medicinal properties, but for the positive energy it radiates. White roses intertwine with lavender. Chamomile grows beside lemon balm. And at the center of everything, a single golden orchid, the last transformation of the original black flowers, glows softly like a beacon of hope. "How do you feel?" he asks, sitting beside her and placing a loving hand on her belly. "Complete," she responds simply, covering his hand with her own. "For the first time in my life, I feel completely whole. There are no more empty spaces in me, no more unanswered questions about my destiny. Everything makes sense now." They observe together the gentle movement of the plants in the garden, hearing the distant sound of Constance conversing with a visitor on the house porch, explaining the properties of a special tea she prepared. The afternoon sun paints everything with golden tones, creating an atmosphere of absolute peace that dramatically contrasts with the supernatural tension that once dominated that same space. Have you ever regretted it? Amelia suddenly asks, turning to study Vincent's face. Trading eternal youth for a common mortal life with me? Vincent laughs, the rich and genuine sound echoing through the garden. Never, he responds without hesitation. Not for a second. That wasn't youth, it was stagnation. That wasn't life, it was empty existence. This, he gestures to the flourishing garden, to the house full of life, to the womb where their child grows. This is real life. And I prefer 40 or 50 years of real life with you than an eternity of golden solitude. A gentle breeze moves their clothes, and Amelia closes her eyes, feeling something familiar in the wind. For a moment, she swears she hears Isabella's voice whispering words of approval and gratitude. The curse hasn't merely been broken, it has been transformed into a blessing. The love that destroyed chains of darkness now flourishes in a new generation. Free to grow in the light. Isabella is proud, Amelia murmurs, opening her eyes to find Vincent observing her with that look of adoration that has never lost its intensity. I can feel her sometimes, especially here in this garden. She can finally rest, knowing that the Hart lineage has not only survived, but found its true purpose. As the sun sets behind the Cold Springs Mountains, painting the sky with shades of pink and gold that reflect in the windows of the restored mansion, Amelia and Vincent remain seated in their healing garden, planning the future of their family and the estate that has become a beacon of hope for so many people. The story that began with a dark ritual and despair has transformed into something luminous and full of purpose. Blackwood Manor is no longer a cursed property lost among abandoned orchards. It's a sanctuary where love triumphed over darkness, where ancestral gifts are used to heal instead of destroy, where two souls found in each other not just passion, but purpose and completeness. When they finally rise to return to the house, Amelia gently touches the golden orchid at the center of the garden. The flower glows more intensely for a moment, as if in blessing, a final confirmation that the cycle of suffering has been broken and a new cycle of love and healing has begun. On the porch of the house, Constance awaits them with hot tea and welcoming smiles. Beatrice has organized the books in the library, where now are found not just texts about ancient curses, but volumes on medicinal botany, traditional healing recipes, and stories of love that triumphed over adversity. This is the life they have chosen, simple in its humanity, extraordinary in its love. A life where each dawn brings new possibilities for healing and growth, where each sunset finds two souls more deeply connected than the day before, where the future unfolds not under the shadow of ancestral curses, but under the golden light of a love that proved stronger than any dark force. And on the serene nights of Cold Springs, when the wind whispers among the golden orchids, the spirits of all the heart healers who came before dance invisibly through the gardens, finally at peace, knowing that their lineage has not merely survived, but flourished in ways they never dared to dream. As the seasons passed, Blackwood Manor continued its transformation from a place of darkness and pain to a center of healing and hope. The baby that Amelia carried was born on a spring morning, as the first rays of sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of the master bedroom. A girl, with eyes that seemed to carry all the wisdom of her ancestors and the promise of a future unbound by ancient curses. They named her Isabella Rose Blackwood, honoring both the grandmother who sacrificed everything to begin breaking the curse and the new life that blossomed from the shadows. Little Bella, as they called her, grew surrounded by love and magic of the purest kind. From her earliest days, she showed signs of having inherited the healing gifts of the Hart lineage, her tiny hands glowing faintly when she touched injured creatures or withering plants. The reputation of Blackwood Manor spread throughout New England. People traveled hundreds of miles seeking Amelia's healing touch, or simply to experience the peculiar peace that permeated the property. Some called it a miracle. Others, more scientifically minded, spoke of unique energy fields or psychological phenomena. But everyone who visited left changed in some subtle but profound way. Vincent expanded the main house, adding a wing dedicated entirely to healing work. The rooms were designed with large windows that allowed sunlight to flood the spaces, banishing any lingering shadows. The walls were painted with murals depicting the natural world, forests, mountains, oceans, and the furniture was handcrafted from local timber by artisans from nearby towns. Beatrice, now moving more slowly but with eyes still bright with life and purpose, became the unofficial historian of the estate. She established a small museum in one of the original rooms, carefully preserving artifacts that told the story of the Blackwood family, both its dark past and its luminous present. Under her guidance, the truth was neither hidden nor sensationalized, but presented as a cautionary tale about the prices paid for power and the redemptive force of love. Constance thrived. In her new role as both mother and grandmother, her heart, healed by modern medicine and strengthened by the joy she found at Blackwood Manor, gave her a vitality that belied her years. She became known for her herbal teas and tinctures, developing mixtures that complemented Amelia's more mystical healing abilities with practical botanical knowledge. On Bella's 5th birthday, Vincent presented his daughter with a special gift, a small greenhouse attached to the main garden, filled with plants carefully selected for a child's first lessons in herbalism and healing. The little structure, with its diamond-paned windows and cedar frame, became Bella's favorite place, a magical realm where she could already follow in her mother's and great-grandmother's footsteps. "She has Isabella's hands," Constance remarked one afternoon, watching her granddaughter carefully repotting a seedling. "The same deliberate movements, the same gentleness. My mother would be so proud." "She is proud," Amelia replied, feeling the familiar warmth that indicated her grandmother's presence nearby. "I think she watches over Bella even more closely than she watches over us." The entity that had once plagued the Blackwood lineage never returned, but occasionally, on particularly dark nights when storms lashed the estate, both Amelia and Vincent would feel a distant stirring, like the faintest echo of an ancient rage. On those nights, they would hold each other closer, draw Bella between them, and remind themselves that some battles, once won, need never be fought again. As Vincent's hair grew more silver and lines deepened around his eyes, he embraced these signs of normal aging with profound gratitude. Each year that passed was a gift he had never expected to receive. The precious, ordinary miracle of growing older alongside the woman he loved, watching their child develop, seeing the seasons change the landscape around them. Amelia's powers continued to evolve in unexpected ways. The golden markings that had appeared on her skin after the final confrontation with the entity became more pronounced over time, forming intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change according to the phases of the moon. She discovered she could communicate with plants in ways that went beyond the traditional knowledge of herbalists, sensing their needs and properties with a touch that grew more sensitive with each passing year. Together, they established a foundation dedicated to preserving traditional healing, knowledge, and supporting young people who showed gifts similar to Amelia's. The Blackwood Heart Foundation became known for its scholarships and retreats, bringing together practitioners of various healing traditions from around the world to share their wisdom and learn from each other. On the 10th anniversary of the breaking of the curse, they held a special celebration at the manor. Friends, clients, and supporters gathered in the gardens, which had grown into a lush paradise of medicinal and ornamental plants. Lanterns hung from tree branches, casting a warm glow over the assembled guests. Musicians played folk tunes that seemed to make the very air vibrate with joy. As the moon rose full and radiant, Amelia and Vincent stood before their community, hands clasped with Bella between them. The golden orchid, which had multiplied over the years into a stunning display throughout the garden, seemed to pulse with light in time with their heartbeats. 10 years ago, Vincent addressed the gathering, his voice strong despite the emotion that made it tremble slightly. This place was a prison of darkness and pain. Tonight we celebrate not just our freedom from that curse, but the new purpose we have found in healing and growth. Amelia squeezed his hand, feeling the familiar current of energy that still passed between them whenever they touched. "We want to thank all of you who have become part of our extended family," she added. "Each of you has contributed to the transformation of Blackwood Manor from a place of fear to a sanctuary of hope." Bella, now old enough to understand something of her family's extraordinary history, looked up at her parents with eyes that seemed to contain universes. "And we're going to keep helping people forever and ever," she declared with the absolute certainty of childhood, bringing laughter and tears to those who heard her. Later that night, After the guests had departed, and Bella was asleep in her room, decorated with constellations that glowed softly on the ceiling, Amelia and Vincent stood on the balcony of their bedroom, looking out over the moonlit gardens. "Do you ever wonder," Amelia asked, leaning her head against his shoulder, "what would have happened if I had never received that letter? If I had never come here that first night?" Vincent was silent for a long moment, contemplating the question. "I believe," he finally said, "that some connections transcend time and circumstance. If not that letter, something else would have brought you to me. The curse itself created the conditions for its own breaking by binding our families together across generations." "A beautiful paradox," Amelia mused. "The very thing meant to destroy us ultimately saved us." "Not just us," Vincent added, gesturing toward the distant lights of Cold Springs. "Everyone touched by this place. The curse was selfish, consuming, but what grew from its breaking is generous healing." They stood in comfortable silence, watching as a shooting star traced a brilliant path across the sky. In that moment, surrounded by the life they had built from the ashes of ancient pain, they felt a completion that few are privileged to know, the profound peace that comes from having faced darkness together and emerged, not just unbroken but transformed. And in the garden below, among the softly glowing golden orchids, the spirits of all those who had suffered under the curse, the women of the Hart lineage, the men of the Blackwood family,